Jack pushed open the door of the small-town diner, the bell above jingling softly as rain dripped from his worn jacket. The night air was cold and heavy, and his boots left wet marks on the floor. He scanned the room quietly. Most tables were empty except for one near the window, where a woman sat alone. Her face was partially hidden by the low light, but Jack could tell she was beautiful in a quiet way. She wasn't smiling, and her eyes looked distant, like she was carrying a heavy secret. The woman kept glancing out the window, as if waiting for someone, or maybe watching for something she feared. Jack was no stranger to looking for signs. Years in the army, mostly in dangerous places like Afghanistan, had taught him how to read a person without words. He noticed how the woman flinched just a little when the door opened behind him, a sharp reaction that told Jack she was on edge. It was a look he had seen many times before, a silent sign of fear, pain, or memories that haunted her like ghosts. He ordered a coffee, black, and then turned toward her table. His voice was calm but steady when he asked, "Mind if I sit?" She hesitated for a moment, her eyes narrowing, as if unsure if he was friend or foe. Then she nodded slightly and said, "Free country." Jack took a seat. Neither of them spoke right away. The silence between them was heavy but not uncomfortable. It was filled with questions neither wanted to ask yet. Jack could see the tension in her fingers, twisting a napkin like she was trying to hold herself together. She didn't seem like someone who trusted easily, and Jack felt a strange pull, as if they were both wounded people meeting by chance, each hoping the other might understand. Slowly the woman began to talk. Her voice was soft but firm. She said her name was Sarah. She told Jack she used to work for the government, sort of. She didn't explain exactly what she did, but from the way she said, "sort of," Jack guessed she had been part of something complicated and dangerous. Sarah said she was involved in analyzing data, but it wasn't just numbers or reports. It was something bigger, something that forced her to see things that most people never knew existed, the kind of things that made you question who you could trust. Jack listened carefully. He told her a little about himself, but only the facts. He was a former Army Ranger, had lost 2 men on his last mission, and had come home to face a different kind of war. One inside his mind. He didn't talk about the nightmares or the emptiness. Instead, he talked about the small moments of hope he still held on to, like the smell of rain on dry earth, or a warm meal after a long day. Sarah's eyes grew softer as she shared more. She said she had tried to walk away from her past, but some people didn't forget what she knew. She was being watched, followed. The weight of those words hung in the air, heavier than the rain outside. Jack could see it in her eyes. She was scared but not weak. She was fighting in her own way, just like he had fought overseas. He asked if she thought someone was after her, and though she didn't answer directly, her fingers tightened around her purse, as if holding on to it kept her safe. Jack had learned long ago that when someone clings to a small thing like that, it often means more than it seems. It could be a weapon, a secret, or just a reminder of what's left to fight for. He felt a strong urge to protect her, not because he knew her well, but because he understood what it meant to carry unseen wounds and live with constant danger. As the night went on, Jack and Sarah talked quietly, sharing stories of loss and hope without needing to explain everything. There was a silent promise between them, one of trust, even if it was fragile and new. Jack knew this meeting was more than chance. It was the start of something neither of them expected, but both needed. Sarah looked at Jack with a new kind of hope, and Jack saw in her a strength he admired. They were 2 broken souls who might just help heal each other. Days passed, and the connection between Jack and Sarah grew slowly but surely. Jack found himself thinking about her when he wasn't with her. The way her voice softened when she spoke about better days, and the brief smiles that sometimes broke through the sadness. Sarah, too, started to feel safer with Jack around. For the first time in a long while, she felt like someone was on her side. One evening, Sarah invited Jack to a small, quiet cafe. It was far from the usual places she had been hiding. She wanted to tell him more. Over warm drinks and the hum of soft music, she began to open up about the secret she carried. She told Jack about the time she worked deep in government offices, where she had access to information that was supposed to be hidden. Names, places, orders, things that were buried to keep powerful people safe. But Sarah couldn't ignore what she found. Some of the secrets were deadly, connected to people who would go to great lengths to keep their crimes hidden. Sarah had tried to speak out. She had gathered proof, saved files on a small flash drive, hoping that someday someone would listen and justice would be done. But instead, she was warned to stop, threatened. The life she knew fell apart. She left her job, left her home, and disappeared into quiet towns like this one. Jack watched her closely. He saw the pain in her eyes, the mix of guilt and fear for the people who might get hurt if the truth came out. But there was also fierce determination. She wasn't ready to give up. "Why do you keep this all inside?" Jack asked gently. "Why don't you tell someone who can help?" Sarah shook her head. "I tried, but the system is broken. People get bought off. People disappear. I'm alone in this." Jack reached across the table and took her hand. His grip was steady, strong. "You're not alone anymore." For the first time, Sarah allowed herself to believe it. The weight she had carried for years felt lighter in that moment, not because the danger was gone, but because she had found someone who understood. Someone who would stand with her no matter what came next. In the quiet of the cafe, two strangers found a rare and precious thing, a chance to trust again. Both knew the road ahead would be hard, but together, they might just have a chance. After days of quiet tension, Jack and Sarah decided to take a break from the heavy weight of secrets and fear. They wanted to feel normal, even if only for a few hours. So, one evening, they went to a local bar, a small place with wooden floors, country music playing softly, and cheap beer. It wasn't fancy, but it was friendly, the kind of place where the locals gathered to forget their worries, for a while. Jack thought maybe a few laughs and a drink would ease the tightness in their chests. As they settled in, Sarah seemed to relax a little. She even smiled when Jack teased the bartender about the slow service. But the moment wasn't meant to last. Across the room, two men watched them closely, their eyes sharp and full of recognition. Jack noticed immediately. He had learned to read people like books. These men weren't just curious. They were dangerous. The way they stared at Sarah was the same way hunters look at prey. Jack's voice lowered when he asked, "Friends of yours?" Sarah's face went still. Her jaw clenched slightly. "Not even close," she said, her voice calm but cold. One of the men, confident and smug, approached their table. He looked older, his face rough like he had seen a hard life, but his eyes were sharp and full of menace. "Hey, Sarah," he said with a slow smile. "Long time. You still holding on to that little flash drive?" The words hit the room like a sudden storm. The flash drive, the secret that Sarah had kept hidden all this time, was the thing that could destroy dangerous people. It held proof, and now those people had found her again. Jack's body moved before his mind fully caught. Up. He stood slowly, blocking Sarah from the man's view. "She said she doesn't want to talk," Jack said firmly, voice steady but low. The man laughed, mocking Jack's calm. "Who's this? Your new guard dog?" His tone was filled with challenge. Jack didn't waste time. His military training took over. With one quick punch, he hit the man's ribs, then used an elbow to strike his jaw. The man dropped to the floor, gasping for air. The bar fell silent, the tension so thick it felt like you could cut it with a knife. The second man, not willing to back down, pulled a knife from his belt. The room gasped. Jack's eyes flicked to the blade, then back to the man's face. The fight was over before it truly began. Jack twisted the attacker's arm behind his back and slammed him hard against the bar. The knife clattered to the floor, forgotten. People around them either stayed frozen or quietly moved away. Jack looked back at Sarah. Her eyes were wide, but not from fear. There was a new kind of trust in her gaze, something rare and precious. For the first time since they met, she didn't seem so alone. After the fight, Jack and Sarah left quickly, the danger still hanging close. Back at her apartment, Sarah finally opened up about the secret she had been hiding for so long. She pulled out the small flash drive from her purse, holding it like a fragile treasure. She told Jack the truth, that the flash drive contained files proving illegal orders, money laundering, and worse. People in power had covered up crimes that cost innocent lives. Sarah had been part of the system, working as a data analyst. But when she discovered the truth, she had tried to stop it. Instead, she was silenced and forced to disappear. Jack listened, his face serious. He understood what she was saying because he had seen how the world could be twisted by those in power. "You could bring them down," Jack said quietly. "This could change everything." Sarah shook her head. "I tried before. No one wanted to listen. People were too scared, too greedy. I couldn't trust anyone." Her voice cracked with pain, but her eyes held a fierce determination. "But I'm not going to give up." Jack reached out and took her hand in his. The gesture was simple, but powerful. A promise that she was not alone anymore. "I know what fear looks like," he said softly. "But I also know what it means to fight for something that's right. You don't have to do this by yourself." Sarah looked at Jack, her eyes shining with tears she wouldn't let fall. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to believe that someone really cared. Someone would stand by her side, no matter the cost. They sat in silence for a while, the weight of the secret between them, but the room felt safer. Together, they could face what was coming. They both knew the road ahead would be dangerous, but there was hope now, a hope born from trust, courage, and the quiet power of two broken people standing together. The night was thick with tension as Jack and Sarah made a plan. They knew the people chasing her would not give up easily. The toy flash drive was their key. The evidence that could expose the truth, but also a dangerous weapon in the wrong hands. Sarah's fear wasn't just for herself anymore. She worried about Jack, too. She had spent so long running alone that trusting someone felt almost impossible, but now that trust was her lifeline. Jack had a simple idea. They would take the flash drive to a trusted friend, a former military contact named Mike who worked in private security. Mike was good with people and had resources that could protect Sarah long enough to get the truth out. But reaching Mike wouldn't be easy. There was a risk of being followed, or worse. Jack and Sarah both understood the stakes. Before they left, Jack made sure Sarah packed only what she needed. Her eyes lingered on a photo on the small table, an old picture of her family, faded and worn. She said nothing, but Jack knew she was thinking about the life she had lost. They left the apartment quietly, stepping into the cold night that seemed to watch their every move. The streets were empty as they walked, shadows stretching long under the streetlights. Jack stayed alert, watching every corner and alley. Sarah walked close beside him, her hand brushing his once or twice, a silent reminder that they were no longer alone. Suddenly, a car pulled up fast beside them. The doors slammed open and men jumped out, blocking their path. Jack pushed Sarah behind him, heart pounding. These men were the same ones who had attacked them before, only now they had backup. The flash drive was worth more than Jack had thought. It was a dangerous game they were playing. Jack's training kicked in. He grabbed Sarah's arm, pulling her behind a parked truck. The men shouted threats, but Jack stayed calm. He scanned the scene quickly and spotted a narrow alley just a few feet away, an escape route. "Follow me," he whispered urgently. They ran through the alley, the sound of angry footsteps close behind. Jack could hear Sarah's breathing quicken, but she kept up. At the alley's end, a fire escape ladder dangled just out of reach. Jack jumped, grabbing it, then helped Sarah climb up. They hauled themselves to the roof of a nearby building and crouched low, heartbeats loud in the quiet night. From above, they saw the men stop below, shouting and looking around in frustration. The moment was tense. Jack knew they couldn't stay up there long. They needed to get to Mike before the night ended. He whispered to Sarah, "We're not safe yet, but we're closer." After waiting until the men gave up the chase and left, Jack and Sarah slipped through the city's dark streets, finally reaching Mike's place. A secure, well-guarded house on the outskirts. Mike opened the door with a tired but knowing smile. "I figured you'd show up," he said. Inside, Mike listened carefully as Sarah explained everything again. He checked the flash drive and nodded slowly. "This is heavy stuff," he said. "People will want to silence you, but I know a few ways to keep you safe." He promised to help get the evidence to people who could act on it, people who still cared about justice. That night, Sarah felt something she hadn't felt in years, a glimmer of hope. For the first time, she believed the truth might come out, and the wrongs might be righted. But Jack saw the toll it took on her. The fear hadn't disappeared. It just hid behind that fragile hope. Days passed with quiet plans and careful moves. Jack and Sarah grew closer, sharing more than just fears. They shared dreams. They talked about a future where the past didn't weigh them down. Sarah smiled more often now, and Jack found himself hoping for a life beyond the battles and scars. But then came the unexpected twist, the real betrayal. Mike, the man they trusted, wasn't who he seemed. One night, Jack overheard a secret phone call Mike made, the words clear enough to shatter their fragile trust. Mike was working for the very people Sarah was running from. The flash drive, the secret evidence, it wasn't safe with him at all. Jack's heart sank. The feeling of safety slipped away like sand through his fingers. He told Sarah quietly, not wanting to crush her hope. But she saw the truth in his eyes. The betrayal cut deep. The one person who promised protection had been a threat all along. They had to move fast. Jack took charge, his mind sharp despite the shock. They packed what little they had and slipped out of Mike's house in the dead of night. This time there was no place to run, no trusted friends to hide behind. It was just the two of them, against the shadow of danger. The next few hours were a blur of adrenaline and fear. They avoided main roads, moved through back alleys, and stayed in the shadows. Every noise made them jump. Every passing car felt like a threat. But through it all, Jack and Sarah stayed close, leaning on each other, drawing strength from their growing bond. Then came the final moment of action. Cornered in an abandoned warehouse, surrounded by Mike's men, Jack and Sarah faced their worst fears. The fight was brutal and fast. Jack took the lead, fighting with the fierce protectiveness of a soldier who refused to lose the person he had come to love. Sarah wasn't just a bystander. She fought with courage born of desperation. Together, they pushed back, using every ounce of strength and wit. In the end, they escaped, bloodied, but alive. The flash drive was still with them, a symbol of the truth they refused to bury. And in that fight, something deeper was clear. Love was their strongest weapon. It wasn't just about surviving. It was about fighting for a better future, one where fear didn't control their lives. As dawn broke, Jack and Sarah sat on a rooftop, looking out at the waking city. The sky was soft and pink, a new day full of uncertain promise. Sarah turned to Jack and said quietly, "I never thought I could trust again. You changed that." Jack smiled, the weight of war and betrayal still heavy, but less sharp. "We're not just survivors," he said. "We're fighters, together." The lesson was clear. Life could betray and hurt, but love could heal and strengthen. And sometimes the hardest battles bring the most meaningful victories.